Out of a specific area, they will still notify the appropriate law enforcement agency that can have the quickest response to their needs. The app is free for Apple and Android users.
Breaking right now at 6, President Donald Trump has just arrived here in South Florida, a little more than 48 hours after one of the worst school shootings in U.S. history. And it appears he is heading south to Broward County.
The president said earlier today he planned to meet with victims' families and survivors during his trip here, and many of them are already voicing their messages loud and clear.
You need to help us now. We need security now for all these children.
Our community just took 17 bullets to the heart, and it feels like the only people who don't care are the people making the laws.
Meanwhile, a stunning admission today from the FBI. The agency now acknowledging they received a tip about the Parkland school shooting suspect weeks ago, but failed to investigate. Thanks for joining us here at 6. I'm Felicia Rodriguez.
And I'm Tiffany Kenny. This new tip we're learning about tonight is separate from the YouTube comments that the FBI could not definitively link to the suspect.
We have live team coverage for you tonight. We begin with our co-anchor Todd McDermott at Palm Beach International Airport. Todd?
Felicia, Tiffany, this is so much bigger, that FBI story. But first, we were all watching as the president touched down here. Little did we know when Air Force One landed at that very moment, the motorcade would be heading south as opposed to heading to Palm Beach and Mar-a-Lago. Now, the president tweeted this morning he would be meeting with both survivors, victims' families, and first responders. We didn't have any details on when or where that would be at the time. No specifics on when the meetings would take place. But now we know much more than that. He did call them the bravest people on earth, and that includes the first responders and medical staff. Much more on where the president, we believe, is heading in just a moment. But that major development today, the shooting, the FBI's mea culpa tonight, that someone close to the confessed shooter, Nicholas Cruz, tipped off the FBI weeks ago, and the FBI failed. And the FBI admits they failed. The tipster warned them about the suspect's, quote, gun ownership, his desire to kill people, his erratic behavior, and disturbing social media posts, as well as the potential of him conducting a school shooting. The FBI's statement today goes on to say that, quote, under established protocols, the information provided by the caller should have been forwarded to the FBI Miami field office, where appropriate investigative steps would have been taken. The FBI says they've already apologized to the families of the 17 students and teachers, staff members who lost their lives Wednesday to the AR-15, but that is not good enough for many South Florida political leaders, of course. Today, Governor Rick Scott pulled no punches. He called for the FBI director to resign. Christopher Wray's been on the job about 6 months. The governor's saying, in part, we constantly promote see something, say something, and a courageous person did just that, and the FBI failed to act. Congressman Ted Deutsch says the FBI and the U.S. Congress must conduct a full oversight investigation of the FBI's internal processes, procedures, in this case, apparent failures. Senator Marco Rubio called it inexcusable. Senator Marco Rubio just minutes ago touched down on Air Force One with the president and first lady. Son Barron is on the plane and headed with the president as well. We should add that Marine One is here and took off a short time ago as well. The Trump plane is also here at the airport. Now, more on where the president, we believe, is heading. We hear that there are parts of the turnpike southbound shut down. Our Jimmy Johnson was at a park in Parkland, but he's now heading or at Broward Health North. Jimmy, we believe the president may at the very least be meeting with medical staff and first responders. What do you see? What do you know? I know there's a heavy law enforcement presence.
That's right, Todd. I'm back here at Broward Health North. I was just here on yesterday afternoon. Take a look behind me. Look at the heavy police presence. In fact, you can see this K-9 unit. This is actually from Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. You can also see Broward County Sheriff's Office. We also did see the Secret Service. They appear to be entering the highway right now. So we expect the president and the first lady, possibly the first family, to make their way here any moment now to meet with the doctors who took very good care of many people that were brought here following the shooting at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. There's obviously a lot of thanks to those people who really took life-saving actions to potentially save as many lives as possible. So we're expecting the president and, of course, the First Lady to arrive here at the hospital any moment to offer their thanks to the doctors that took those life-saving measures. Todd?
All right, Jimmy, thank you very much. Angela Rozier also joins me live. And Angela, you today spoke with somebody who, remember, Nicholas Cruz attended that school for a year, but actually spotted him among the students fleeing the school after the shooting.
That's right. We talked to a student who says that he has known Nicholas Cruz since the 6th grade. He says the two, they fell apart. They didn't know each other or lost track with each other for about a year. But as you said, on Wednesday, the day of the shooting, they met again. Ethan Trio is a senior at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, and he says Wednesday he was on the other side of the school next to the garden when the fire drill started. He says at first everyone lined up outside as normal, but then he says that's when he saw Nicholas Cruz walk right by him.
I remember seeing Nick Cruz walk past me. He was looking down, it was around 3:20, I guess, and he walked right past me, and my friend Alexa and I, we noticed him, but we didn't really say much. And apparently he greeted, some people greeted him, and he greeted back as normal. As a friend, I should have noticed, the change in him.
And he also says when he later learned that people at the school, 17 people at his school were shot and killed, and Cruz was the alleged gunman, he says he couldn't believe it. Now, we also talked with Ethan here near the makeshift memorial, not far from that school, a few blocks away. And today, friends and students and friends have been stopping by, dropping off flowers here at this makeshift memorial. Again, he says he wishes that he saw the signs, but he says he didn't know anything, and he's hurting today because of that. Reporting live in Parkland, Angela Rozier, WPBF 25 News.
Angela, all the more ironic considering that call to the FBI tip line that was not heeded by the FBI by sending it to the Miami field office. As the first of the 17 students and staff members were laid to rest today, students at a nearby South Florida high school close to Stoneman Douglas were focused on the issue of gun violence today and guns in general. Dozens of students gathered at South Broward High to protest. Their signs in opposition to existing gun laws, the National Rifle Association, as well as President Trump himself. Earlier in the day, Senator Bill Nelson urged the president to change his own position on gun control.
It's very hard to pass legislation unless the president will support it so that he gets the support among the Republican senators. So what I would say to the president is, please change your position about assault weapons. Please change your position, Mr. President, about background checks. These are two common sense things that we need to etch into law right now.
Now, on the flip side, Florida's junior senator, Republican Marco Rubio, says gun law and change in gun law would not have prevented this tragedy at that high school on Wednesday. Again, the president just arrived. We now know he is headed south, and he is headed to Parkland to meet with first responders, medical staff, we believe, and possibly families of some of the victims. That may still be to come over this weekend. For now, I'll send it back to Felicia and Tiffany in the studio.
All right, Todd, thank you. And multiple churches and parks are hosting prayer vigils to remember the 17 lives lost.
A prayer vigil will be held at Life FLShoot Church at 7:30 tonight in Coral Springs. On Saturday, there will be a prayer walk at Life FLShoot Church, and then on Sunday, a prayer service at 8 a.m., 9:30 a.m., and 11 a.m. at First United Methodist Church in Coral Springs. Here in Palm Beach County, a prayer vigil just got underway moments ago at Florida Atlantic University's Free Speech Lawn. And on Sunday, there will be a prayer and meditation session at 11 a.m. at the Kabbalah Center, Boca Raton.
We've been bringing you stories of the 17 people killed in this tragedy over the past 2 days, and tonight we're learning more about one of the 7 survivors still in the hospital. Her name is Maddie. She's a junior at Stoneman Douglas and plays on the basketball team. Her mother posted on Facebook that a bullet went straight through her midsection, and she's undergone 3 surgeries now. She remains in critical condition.
Broward County officials have not decided when to resume classes at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, but one thing is certain: the district will never reopen the freshman building where those shootings took place. The Broward County School District says they plan to tear down the building. The superintendent says many students and parents have already said they could never imagine going back inside. The district says the building will remain closed off as a crime scene, likely for several more weeks. When police turn it back over to the district, it will be leveled and replaced with a memorial for the victims.
Our coverage of the school shooting in Parkland continues both on air and online. As we mentioned at the top of the newscast, the FBI issuing a statement admitting they mishandled a tip that they received about the suspected gunman weeks ago. You can read their full statement right now on the WPBF 25 News app and on our WPBF 25 News Facebook page. We have more video of students as they returned to Douglas High School to pick up their cars.
For the third time since the school shooting in Parkland, a student in our area has been arrested in connection with a threat towards their school. The most recent, a teenager in Port St. Lucie who police say threatened to shoot up his school. Police tell us the teen had been suspended for 10 days. They say he posted the threats on social media. The post included a photo of him holding what appeared to be a rifle, which police say was actually a BB gun.
The Department of Justice has announced indictments for 13 Russian nationals and 3 Russian groups for interfering in the 2016 presidential election. And the DOJ says a lot of the interference happened in Florida. The indictment depicts an elaborate scheme where Russians came to the U.S. with the deliberate intention of undermining elections. Investigators say they may have gone as far as to organize rallies in our state.
The nature of the scheme was that the defendants took extraordinary steps to make it appear that they were ordinary American political activists.
The indictment alleges the Russians posed as American citizens as early as 2014 and operated social media accounts aimed at U.S. audiences. President Trump has since tweeted that the interference happened, quote, long before I announced that I would run for president. The results of the election were not impacted. The Trump campaign did nothing wrong. No collusion. But the Department of Justice says the Russians manipulated a number of candidates, and by mid-2016, they supported Trump and disparaged Hillary Clinton. Next at 6, new developments in connection to last week's wild crime spree that ended with a deputy-involved shooting on I-95. The new crime, police say they've linked to the suspect. Chris?
All right, an above-average day here across South Florida. The question is, will it last into the weekend? All the details in South Florida's most accurate forecast right after the break.
Jetson St. Lucie West store is moving from here to right over here. All excess inventory must go. That means huge discounts on closeouts, display models, and one-of-a-kind items. If it's not bolted down, it's got to go. The Jetson St. Lucie West moving sale is going on now.
Over 1 million Floridians petitioned to put Amendment 3 on this November's ballot. Amendment 3 will put voters, not politicians, in charge of casino gambling in Florida. And that's got Tallahassee politicians and lobbyists scrambling for gambling. They're trying desperately to expand gambling now, before voters have their say. Tell Tallahassee politicians, on gambling, let the voters decide. Leave it be until Amendment 3.
Thousands of award-winning Honda SUVs are on sale from $189 a month during the Honda President's Day sales event. You've got to see these SUVs. Get a surprisingly spacious 2018 HR-V, $189 a month, or step up to Pilot for $289 a month with available seating for 8. Plus, we have Motor Trend's SUV of the Year, the 2018 CR-V, and Ridgeline, a Car and Driver's 10 Best. All on sale for up to $38.05 less than the competition at your local Honda dealer.
Now is the time to buy during the Drive to Win sales event at Napleton's North Palm Hyundai on North Lake. Come see our huge selection of Elantras, Sonatas, Santa Fe's, Tucsons, and Velosters with up to 30% off MSRP. Yes, up to 30% off. Now that's how you win. Only at Napleton's North Palm Hyundai on North Lake.
It's as simple as this. If you buy anywhere else, you'll pay too much. Stop in and save only at Napleton and only on North Lake. Napleton, second to none since 1931.
The BP oil spill was one of the worst environmental disasters in history, leaving oil-covered wildlife struggling for life, threatening hundreds of thousands of jobs, and polluting Florida's coastline.
But now we have a governor who denies climate change, a president who denies everything, and a Congress that may start allowing drilling. When I'm governor, the threat of drilling is gonna stop.
Philip Levine for governor.
Hurry into Jetson, and for a limited time, get a free Big Green Egg Nest when you purchase a qualifying Big Green Egg Grill. Sale price good while supplies last. Only at Jetson. Expert advice plus the best price.
You're watching WPBF 25 News. Always live, local, late breaking.
And breaking news right now, President Trump has landed here at PBIA in West Palm Beach, but is now headed south, detouring from Palm Beach and Mar-a-Lago to head south to meet with first responders and medical staff and perhaps survivors' families and survivors themselves at Broward North Health. This is the scene there right now where not only is there a heavy police presence, we believe Secret Service is in place as well. The lady is with the president, that much we know, and they are headed south now and should arrive in a very short time because much of the turnpike southbound has been shut down to allow for the president's motorcade to make their way down there to the Parkland area down there in Broward, North Broward County. The president said he wanted to meet with people he called very brave, and now he's going to do at least part of that this evening. He says, now at the same time, the Broward County Sheriff gave a very significant update this afternoon. We want to get to some of that right now. There are some changes in the story now and some updates on victims as well. Sheriff Scott Israel first says 7 survivors do remain hospitalized tonight. Some of those obviously in Broward North, where President Trump is heading. Sheriff Scott Israel says one of the survivors discharged from the hospital and now recovering at home is the son of one of the sheriff's deputies. He spoke about that deputy and his son last night at the prayer vigil I attended at Pine Trails Park in Parkland. That was last evening. The sheriff also clarified a couple of pieces of the details of the attack that came out and were reported, and it came from witnesses. They have since been clarified. He says the suspect, again, that's Nicholas Cruz, who has confessed to shooting up students, shooting up the hallways and shooting students and staff, was never in possession of gas masks or grenades, which have been reported by a couple of witnesses. What we do know is that he did have that AR-15 and a soft-sided duffel of some kind, as well as perhaps a backpack, and had multiple magazines. Obviously, he planned to fire many more bullets than he apparently did. Again, the president has arrived in South Florida, heading down to Parkland as we speak. Felicia and Tiffany, back to you.
All right, Todd, thank you. And police say 2 incidents that shut down parts of I-95 in Palm Beach County last week are connected.
Early last Wednesday morning, you may recall a car careened off the side of I-95 in Boca Raton. Police say the driver was found shot to death, and now investigators say evidence from that crime is linked to this man, Hugo Selva. He's the man a deputy shot to death on I-95 last week after they say he killed his girlfriend, then drove the wrong way on I-95. Police say Selva shot a total of 4 people in 24 hours, and that he called 911 and may have tried to turn himself in after one of those shootings.
I'm just scared. I have the mother of my child, and I'm just scared.
Okay. Do you have your child with you?
No.
Okay. Is she okay?
Yes.
The mother of your child's okay?
Yes.
Investigators say just hours later, Selva shot and killed his girlfriend. Chris?
All right, good Friday evening. We are talking about temperatures this evening that are on the warm side, but the saving grace is going to be the nice little onshore breeze that we're seeing right now out of the east and southeast. Numbers right now, we've got 76 Port St. Lucie, 79 Vero Beach, 77 currently West Palm Beach. Again, winds out of the east and southeast makes it feel a little more comfortable, right? Anywhere between 10 and 15 miles per hour. Good to go on the radar. Nothing out there. In fact, your Friday evening looks great. Take a look at the temperatures by this evening. We can do 72, right? That is nice. It's comfy. Overnight, everyone down into the low to mid 60s and another comfortable start here across South Florida. So here's the big picture you can see across the southeast. Everything is good to go with high pressure in control. We do have a storm system that's sitting up towards the north, the cold air to the north as well as high pressure blocking any kind of storm systems from coming in. But take a look at what's going to happen for folks up towards D.C., New York City, and Boston later Saturday into Sunday. Watch this winter storm producing a lot of snow, a lot of wintry precipitation from D.C. again up towards New York, Boston, You can see that moves in late Saturday into Sunday. So if you have those travel plans up towards the northeast, anywhere from D.C. to New York to Boston, Saturday night into Sunday, you will definitely be looking at travel issues across that area. So here's a look at the future track. Looks good tonight, mostly clear to partly cloudy skies, lots of sunshine tomorrow morning and into the afternoon. If you have any outdoor plans, things are looking good. It's just going to be a little bit on the warm side. Boating forecast also looks great. Seas running 1 to 2, light chop on the inland waterways with the southeasterly breeze at 5 to 10. Here's a look at South Florida's certified most accurate forecast. High temperatures on the warm side. They'll be in the low to mid 80s. Scattered rain chances only pick up to 20% by Tuesday.
All right, Chris, thank you. And here's a look at what's coming up on World News.
Tonight, the high school massacre in Florida. New details emerging about the alleged gunman's troubled past. As the community comes together in healing, the debate over gun control rages across the country. For the latest, turn to ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir.
WPBF 25 First Alert Weather, certified South Florida's most accurate team.
Bev Smith Kia's New Year's savings start with up to $2,000 more for your trade, 0% financing, or get $4,000 off any new Kia. That's an actual $4,000 off any new Kia.
Only at Bev Smith Kia. 2 convenient locations, same great deals.
Sexual assault is never to be tolerated, especially in the workplace, where victims often fear harassment or dismissal from the job. Don't be a victim. Call Lytle, Ryder, Smith, Ivy, and Fronrath today. The call is confidential and free.
Week only. Celebrate President's Day the Wallace way. It's the biggest President's Day sale on the Treasure Coast. Shop over 2,000 new and used vehicles at all 9 Wallace locations. Nissans, Chevys, Volkswagens, Dodges, Jeeps, Rams, and much more. All marked down with incredible savings. Plus, finance reps on site guarantees fast approval. That's the Wallace way. More people start their day with WPBF 25 News Mornings. Thank you for making WPBF 25 News Mornings #1.
Today,
we have even better access
to expert heart care right here at Cleveland Clinic, Florida.
Backed by advanced technology,
our team has decades of experience caring for all matters of the heart.
From the routine to complex procedures and transplants.
Call today.
We are here to care for you and your heart.
Anytime.
Anywhere.
Find your way to the best care at clevelandclinicflorida.org.
This is a can't-miss event. Get to Nissan now for big President's Day savings on Rogue with ProPilot Assist that helps keep you centered in your lane. The technology of tomorrow, available today. Get big savings on our entire lineup now. It's time for an upgrade. Hurry into the Nissan Now sales event for exclusive President's Day offers. Now get 0% financing for up to 72 months on 13 models or save up to $11,260 on select models.
Have you been injured in a motor vehicle or motorcycle accident? If so, call the law firm of Lytle, Ryder, Smith, Ivy, and Fronrath. Get an experienced law firm on your side. Call 1-800-4RIGHTS or visit foryourrights.com.
Bev Smith Kia's New Year's savings start with up to $2,000 more for your trade, 0% financing, or get $4,000 off any new Kia. That's an actual $4,000 off any new Kia.
Only at Bev Smith Kia. 2 convenient locations, same great deals.
Big news for local golf fans. For the first time in 4 years, Tiger Woods going to be playing in the Honda Classic.
It is exciting. Tournament officials made the announcement just before tonight's registration deadline. The biggest name in golf last played at PGA National back in 2014, but has missed each of the last 3 years due to injury. Honda Classic Week begins on Monday. The tournament starts Thursday.
The WPBF 25 Health and Wellness Festival, Saturday, March 10th. Don't miss it.
First out the door when it matters most. For more than a decade, he's been right there, everywhere. And when American jobs are on the line, he leads the charge. ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast, and we thank you.
Investment Jordan Fort Pierce. Free window tinting, pinstriping, nitrogen tire fills, lifetime warranty, even free financing. Plus $500 in bonus cash. Join the free-for-all at Best Smith Jordan Fort Pierce.
exceptional physicians. Tradition Medical Center is now bigger, better, and ready to serve you.
Make your home improvement dreams a reality at the West Palm Beach Home Show, Friday, February 16th through Sunday, February 18th at the South Florida Fairgrounds, and enjoy free admission. At the Home Show, meet with experts in remodeling, kitchens, bathrooms, windows, roofing, hot tubs, general contracting, and so much more, all while checking out hundreds of fabulous home improvement companies. Shop and compare all day. Get the right answers and save. For hours and directions to the Home Show, visit westpalmhomeshow.com.
Why are so many people buying from Greco? It's the price. And right now you can save up to 25% off.
I'm Mike Greco. The factory makes the cars. Greco makes the difference.
During the Great Greco Upgrade event, get up to 25% off all 2017s. We're out to be #1 and we'll do whatever it takes. Every 2017 vehicle is up to 25% off. Plus, get the Greco difference. This sale absolutely ends February 28th at Greco.
We'll save you thousands. We guarantee it.
WPBF 25 News Mornings is the only place you'll find non-stop weather. No need to wait. Your local forecast is always on the bottom of your screen. WPBF 25's non-stop weather is brought to you by your South Florida Honda dealers.
The free-for-all continues at Best Mid Toyota Fort Pierce. Free window tinting, pinstriping, nitrogen tire fills, lifetime warranty, even free financing, plus $500 in bonus cash. Join the free-for-all at Best Mid Toyota Fort Pierce.
You are looking at live pictures out of Broward County right now, where there is heavy police presence at the hospital where a number of the victims of Wednesday's shooting are being treated. This is Broward Health North. We know Governor Rick Scott was there the first night as well as Thursday morning, and still 7 victims remain in the hospital.
We are expecting to see President Trump arriving here shortly. He arrived at Palm Beach International Airport around 5:40 and said that he had planned to meet with victims and first responders. We'll continue to stay on top of the president's trip here to the Palm Beach area as well as into Broward County throughout today and the weekend.
We'll see you back here at 11. World News is next.
WPBF 25 closed captioning is sponsored by Lytle, Ryder, Smith, Ivy, and Fronrath.
We are all rooting for Team USA, and during the Pyeongchang Games, WPBF 25 News is here on time, right at 11 o'clock.
The big stories impacting South Florida on time every night.
Always tracking, always monitoring your certified most accurate forecast so you could prepare for tomorrow.
At the end of your busy day, don't wait later for news that matters now.
During the Pyeongchang Games, South Florida's most trusted team is on time every night. Watch WPBF 25 News at 11.
Wherever you roam, you're always at home in an RV. It's the West Palm Beach RV Show, February 15th through 18th at the South Florida Fairgrounds. A huge selection of RVs with show special pricing and drive them home financing. The West Palm Beach RV Show, Thursday through Sunday.
The BP oil spill was one of the worst environmental disasters in history, leaving oil-covered wildlife struggling for life, threatening hundreds of thousands of jobs, and polluting Florida's coastline.
But now we have a governor who denies climate change, a president who denies everything, and a Congress that may start allowing drilling. When I'm governor, the threat of drilling is gonna stop.
Philip Levine for governor.
Now is the time to buy during the Drive to Win sales event at the all-new Napleton Kia on Northlake. Come see our huge selection of Kia cars and SUVs in our all-new state-of-the-art facility. Take up to 30% off MSRP. Yes, up to 30% off. Now that's how you win. Only at the all-new Napleton Kia on Northlake.
It's as simple as this. If you buy anywhere else, you'll pay too much. Stop in and save only at Napleton and only on Northlake. Napleton, second to none since 1931.
Over 1 million Floridians petitioned to put Amendment 3 on this November's ballot. Amendment 3 will put voters, not politicians, in charge of casino gambling in Florida. And that's got Tallahassee politicians and lobbyists scrambling for gambling. They're trying desperately to expand gambling now, before voters have their say. Tell Tallahassee politicians, on gambling, let the voters decide. Leave it be until Amendment 3.
Wherever you roam, you're always at home in an RV. It's the West Palm Beach RV Show, February 15th through 18th at the South Florida Fairgrounds. A huge selection of RVs with show special pricing and drive them home financing. The West Palm Beach RV Show, Thursday through Sunday.
ABC World News Tonight with David Muir is sponsored locally by Searcy, Denny, Scarola, Barnhart, and Shipley, attorneys at law.
U.S. News Best Lawyers ranks Searcy Denny